Dear students, we shall be talking about the comparative anatomy of skeletal system, where we mainly need to compare the visceral, skeletal, or rather we need to talk about evolution of visceral arches. So before we start with that, we need to understand what are visceral arches, or what is rather endoskeleton. The endoskeleton in vertebrates, that is composed of two parts. One is the axial skeleton and second is the appendicular skeleton. So axial skeleton means that includes the skull, the vertebrae, and third is the visceral arches. Whereas appendicular skeleton includes the girdles, that is pectoral and pelvic girdle, and second is the limbs or extremities. So if we look at the skull, this visceral arches is a part of the skull. It has three parts. One is neurocranium, also called as brain box, or it is also called as chondrocranium. What is chondrocranium means? The one where the brain is housed, that part of the skull where the brain is housed and lined by the cartilaginous covering, hence chondrocranium, brain box, because it has the brain, or neurocranium, the part which is having the nervous system, main part of the nervous system, that is brain. The second part is the dermatocranium also it is called as, that lines over the chondrocranium which by the dermal bones. And third part is the splanchocranium. Splanchocranium means that includes the visceral arches, which is the endoskeleton of the pharyngeal part. So next is, if we need to read about, let's say, if we had to look at the splanchocranium, that includes, if we had to look at the to begin with the cartilaginous fishes. If we look at the cartilaginous fishes, if we look at the skull of the scolodon, that is something like this: rostral bone, and the cranium, basically it includes the rostral bone, and it has certain sense organs: olfactory capsule, optic capsule, and this portion is the otic capsule. And visceral arches, there are seven pairs of visceral arches to begin with. This is the first one, which is called as mandibular arch. Mandibular arch forms the upper and lower jaw. The upper part, that is called as palato-pterygoquadrate. Lower part called as Meckel's cartilage, and the Meckel's cartilage is on the two sides, they meet interiorly, complete the lower jaw, while posteriorly it meets the PPQ, one half of PPQ. Also, it meets the first part of the hyoid arch, which is the second arch, and this cartilage is called as hyomandibular cartilage. So first arch is called as the mandibular arch, which has these parts which I just mentioned, that is PPQ, palatopterygo cartilage, and second was the Meckel's cartilage, whereas that was about the first cartilage. We had to look at the other parts, that is this was the upper jaw and this was the lower jaw, articulating with that of the PPQ as well as the second arch. So second arch, it consists of three parts. One is the hyomandibular cartilage, lateral side is serratohyal, and one which is present on the basal part, that is the basi. This is the basihyal, this is the serratohyal, and this is hyomandibular arch. Similarly, behind that, these are two arches. One is this is the first arch, this is the hyoid arch, second arch, and then from 3 to 7 they are the branchial arches. So what are different parts of the branchial arches? I'll just draw. These are, to begin with, from the dorsal side, it is the pharyngobranchial. After pharyngobranchial is the epibranchials. After epibranchials, epibranchial is, this is pharyngobranchial, this is epibranchial, which is lateral, and ventrolateral is the serratobranchial. This is serratobranchial, and after serratobranchial, dorsolateral rather, is the hypobranchial, and ventral is the basibranchial. This is showing one half of the arch. So similarly, you can make all these 5 elements and the basibranchial together. They are joining like this. The basibranchial, and here is the notochord. You can make the notochord, this portion, and they are supporting the, basically they are supporting the pharynx. And the basibranchials together, they are forming the, let's say, the base of the pharynx, whereas the basibranchial of the hyoid arch, that forms the floor of the buccal cavity. So this is the arrangement in case of cartilaginous fishes. Whereas if you look at the osteichthyes, what happens in osteichthyes? Scenario is slightly different. How it is different? In case of osteichthyes, the bones are, they have been, visceral skeleton is formed of dermal bones which join in the mid-ventral line, such as PPQ does not meet anteriorly. Branchial arches support, first four support the gills, fifth branchial arch is reduced. Upper jaw is formed of premaxilla, maxilla, which are the bony parts of the mandibular arch, and lower jaw is formed of 3 bones. Upper jaw is made up of premaxilla, maxilla, which are the form part of mandibular bone. So first arch, this is the part of first arch. Then lower jaw, it is made up of 3 bones, that is dentary, Then is angular and articular. Articular means the one which is articulating. It is a part of Meckel's bone. Branchial arches, if you look at the branchial arches, how they are different, they are different. They support only first gill slits. Fifth branchial arch is reduced. In case of amphibians, what happens in amphibians? In amphibians, the scenario is slightly different. So we look at the amphibians. How amphibians are different? The visceral skeleton is different. We look at the visceral skeleton. Visceral skeleton, it is formed of upper jaw, lower jaw. Now I mentioned the bones, upper jaw, lower jaw, and another part which is forming the part of visceral skeleton in amphibians, that is hyoid apparatus. So upper jaw, it is semi-oval. Upper jaw is, this is the upper jaw. It is semi-oval in case of frog, and it is made up of the premaxillae anterior most, premaxillae